So now it is my pleasure to introduce Liz Vitullo and her panel. And you met Liz this morning, but she's back again. She's that good. Go.
Donna. And thank you, Senator Manchin. You teed us up beautifully, so that was great. As Donna mentioned, my name's Liz Vitullo. I am thrilled to be part of the steering committee, and I've got an expert panel here. I've got a retired general, I've got a talented educator who coaches our next round of cyber professionals, and a former CIO that just kind of wrote the book on things. And so that's my short version of their bios. They're all in our the conference material, but you should check them out. This is an expert panel. So given the focus of today's conference, West Virginia's digital destiny, we would be remiss if we didn't have a panel dedicated to cybersecurity. As society continues to advance digitization, advancing computing, and technologies, the attack surface is now the sum of our systems and capabilities. They can now be exploited by cyber attacks, and we've accelerated our vulnerability. So there's no doubt, as mentioned earlier by Kimberly Williams, that the number of cyber attacks will continue to grow and escalate, and in the coming months and years, we're going to see more of this. I could go into some statistics, but I think our video really set the stage for this. So we have this perfect storm of being more exposed, being more vulnerable, as we continue to digitize and grow the number, and we have this growing number of bad actors who are financially rewarded for their nefarious actions, and they're becoming more sophisticated, especially when they pool efforts. And this is countered by not enough supply in our cyber workforce. So, you know, the perfect storm, right? But I'm the optimist, the optimist, and the good news is that we have a panel with all the solutions right here. They're going to tell us how to fix everything, and they're going to do it in the next 30 to 40 minutes. So I'm going to start with Karen, and I'm going to have you tell us a little bit about your thoughts on this statement. So every day we hear of another significant cyber attack on either a government agency or private company. It underscores the need to secure our nation's cyber infrastructure. So what's your opinion on the greatest threats on this front?
Well, first off, I appreciate always coming back to West Virginia. I live in West Virginia, and I want to thank Senator Manchin for your service and for confirming me. So so it was great when he talks about some of that stuff. So it was great to get through the confirmation process. But what I really wanted to focus on when we start talking about, and I think the video highlighted it, and Senator Manchin talked about a lot of things across the threat landscape, but to me, what I see as the greatest threat is the threat to the economy itself, which is really about small and medium businesses. And so we talk about critical infrastructure, we talk about nation states, we talk about state and local governments, we go through everything, but the one thing we talk about but don't do a lot about is small and medium businesses. And small and medium businesses are the economic driver of the state, of the country, and of the world. And they're the soft underbelly. So when you watch that video, what it was talking about really is ransomware, and ransomware is sold as a service. Even hackers now don't really have to know how to code anymore. They can go out and just buy it, okay? And then what they look at is who is the most vulnerable population. We talked about healthcare, we talked about all of it, but it is the small and medium organizations in all of these verticals, because they have to make hard decisions about resources as they go forward. And not every small and medium business is going to go out there and hire an IT professional. What they do is they rely on managed service providers, and that's why Move It worked so well. We were talking about this on the sidelines over here, and I said, do you know how many letters I got related to Move It? Because so many companies use that software to be able to manage their operations. So when we really look at this, to me, what the biggest threat that is going to hit us is really about getting small and medium businesses to understand the risk in the ecosystem that they're involved in.
Mm-hmm. I don't think we could agree more on that. And Josh, in your role as an educator and the coach of the U.S. Cyber Team, let me get you to start the discussion on the next question. There's a supply issue in our cyber workforce and growing demands for cybersecurity professionals. How do we meet the demand for this expertise, and how do we get students interested in cybersecurity?
That's a good question. I grew up here in West Virginia, and I'm going to say this, I'm going to say it twice. The most brilliant kids in this country, in the United States, are right here in West Virginia. They're right here. They're right here. From Hedgesville to Harts Creek, I've recruited it, I've worked with these kids, and I've won national championships with those kids. And I say this much, and building on what Karen says, is establishing initiatives like cyber academies in middle schools, high schools, elementary schools, getting students excited about cybersecurity, teaching them the basics of programming and AI and cyber, teaching them how businesses operate, how cybersecurity works at a very basic level, but building on that and inspiring them to go on to college. But even in those cyber academies, working with small and medium-sized businesses who buy into that, and also with the colleges on top of that, because we can't do that alone. We can't do it by ourselves as Marshall. We can't do it by ourselves as WVU. So it's going to take a substantial buy-in. The investment is substantial, but the return on investment is going to be phenomenal. And I say that to anyone out here today, whether you're in government or business, invest in the K through 12 sector. Involve yourselves into them, and the investment will be phenomenal.
General Hoyer, I know this is a passion of yours, especially since you've joined WVU. Do you want to add anything to that?
No, I think, don't tell Donna that I snuck out a little bit ago, but I had the opportunity to go across town to a lab, and Civil Military Innovation Institute hosting military personnel working on the intersection between the physical critical infrastructure and the cyber piece itself. That's part of a bigger initiative that's a center of excellence that includes Marshall, and WVU is a national asset. And we've got to have the young people to feed that national asset that we've created right here in West Virginia by a lot of people in this room working together. I think we've got to, and one of the great advantages of PEC is its outreach into those school systems. And the other one I think of is the opportunity that we here in Mon County have if we get on board with Renaissance Academy and we create those new opportunities for young people to be successful.
Well, that tees us up for the next question. And, Karen, we talked a little bit about, the video reference CLOP. I recently read an article again about the thriving hacker economy, where hackers are pooling skills to become more specialized and more lethal. How do we keep up with this evolving nature of cyber attacks, and how do we train the next generation of cybersecurity professionals?
It's a multifaceted question, like what we're talking about. But a lot of the things were stressed today. A lot of the different techniques, critical thinking, these types of things that you get from here, from school. But it does start, I think, in K through 12. And so just in my own journey, because, I am old. They call me the grandmother of the Federal Information Management Security Act, and it's even changed. The name has changed. And so I've been around, it seems like, forever. And what really, I think, happened in my career was I was influenced by a teacher in high school. Mm-hmm. Okay, so when we start looking at K through 12, and he just made it fun. So I became a chemistry major. Okay, and everybody's like, how did you pick chemistry? And why did you do that? It was because this teacher just made it fun. And I thought, oh, how hard could that be? When I got to WVU, I found out how hard it could be to be a chemistry major. But I will tell you that because of the discipline and the things that you're taught, that you take them with you no matter where you go. So cybersecurity is just another topic. It's not any, and we make it sound really spooky and scary and all these other things, but there's so much that has been done. And wouldn't it be great to work with parents and say, hey, your kid is playing all these games on a computer. They could make a living at that. Mm-hmm. They can go forward. They can make 6 figures, 7 figures. They can be part of an IPO. There is so much that you can do if we would just talk about it a little bit differently, and not make it this big amorphous thing, but that it's really about, it's managing risk, and all of us know it. All of us sit there and we think about, well, how much risk am I willing to take, or where is my interest? That's what cybersecurity is about. But I do agree with you. It starts back in K through 12, and those first life experiences you carry with you forever.
So, Josh, I'm sure you have some thoughts on training the next generation of cybersecurity professionals.
Yeah, so I work the head coach of the U.S. cyber team, and part of that initiative is to build a competitive cybersecurity team to compete in international competitions. Our members of that team come from all over, and I also coach the team here at Marshall. And if you don't know that, WVU and Marshall have very good competitive cybersecurity teams, so you'd be very proud of what we have here in the state. But building on top of that, and building what Karen says, making competitive cybersecurity fun. Create competitions that leverage problems that solve AI issues. With both the university and the U.S. cyber team, we're playing competitive tournaments every weekend. And this past weekend, we went into a capture the flag competition that involved AI as one of the problems, where you had to prompt the AI in order to solve the flag and get the flag. So, and these are full college-age adults that are trying to spin wheels on that. So imagine taking that kind of competitive, fun environment and creating that at the K through 12 level, building curriculum around this. It's tough when you're a high school teacher, trying to wrap your mind around this. But on top of that, make it fun. When a student gets this for the first time, they're inspired and say, oh, I want to do that. That's a fun competition now, but it translates into a skill that is going to give me a livelihood later on in life. And if you're a kid and you know that, why wouldn't you want to do that, right? Why wouldn't you want to study that and contribute back to society? I think it's a win-win situation if we can paint that throughout the state of West Virginia and abroad, and be the leaders in that.
General Hoyer, any thoughts on that?
So I'm going to, as Liz knows, I kind of diverge on answers sometimes. So one of the things related to education that I want us to think about, and it goes to some points that Senator Manchin, my good friend and has been a mentor to me, is working on now, that we don't pay any damn attention to, is technology can exacerbate two things that I think are going on in this country right now that we've got to get a handle on. And I love my country and I love all of you guys, but we are two things right now: divisive and complacent. And when you add division and complacency with technology in a near-peer competition environment, our near-peer competitors are going to kick our butts. Yep. So the other thing we've got to do in this is we've got to continue to get back into the what we teach in the school systems, not just related to technology, but about civil discourse and coming together. And I think, about the 2014 water contamination we had in the Kanawha Valley, 350,000 people without water. And the way we overcame that is we came together and we solved it together. So if we don't teach that discourse and teach those things that bring us together, along with the technology piece, we're going to get our butts whooped.
Right.
Hear that? It's coming from a general there, so you got to take that seriously. The next question, to quote my dear friend and colleague, Dr. Chris Ramazan from WVU, it's the human factor that is involved in 80% of data breaches. So much of cyber education or cyber discussion is focused on the technical skills, but some suggest that we don't spend enough time on cyber hygiene. My guess, Karen, you have some thoughts on the human element in this.
Well, so I agree with everything that you've said about competition. So in my background, 12 years ago, I started working on competitions because they weren't prevalent back then. And so we started the U.S. Cyber Challenge, and the whole idea was, hey, we have a shortage of professionals, so there's got to be another way for people to demonstrate their capabilities. Let's do these competitions and put real-life problems out there. And so the U.S. Cyber Challenge was born for that. We worked a lot with Congress about saying, hey, you should be able to take the experiences of these competitions, and they should count for work experience. So when I came back out of this past administration, everybody said, well, why aren't you going to go back and work on workforce issues? And my answer was, well, everybody's there now. 12 years ago, like, people weren't looking at it. The whole world knows we have shortages, and it's only going to continue to grow. So I moved to small businesses, and I run the Cyber Readiness Institute, but it's focused not on technology, but human behavior, to help small and medium businesses create a culture of cyber readiness. And it's focused on 4 areas. So then you're going to be like, oh, yeah, that makes sense, right? So you heard about more than a password. You heard about multi-factor authentication, phishing. We've been talking about it all day with AI, and you're going to use AI to fight AI. So phishing is just going to get even, it's going to really grow exponentially. Automatic updates, right? And then storage, removable media. So you saw all of that. But it has to be about the human behavior, because there isn't a person who doesn't get that email that when they know their CEO is traveling somewhere in the United States and it says, hey, I need you to transfer $250,000 to this account so I can do XYZ. Do you know how many people do that? I mean, they do it. There are simple things like what you're saying is like, maybe I should pick up the phone and just call them and ask them, do I really need to send that $250,000 to you, and find out. The reliance on technology, because we want to get things done so fast, you don't stop and think. And so we're very focused on that culture, because if you create this culture that, and then you teach it in the education system, and you have this culture of cyber readiness, as a company continues to grow, the culture grows with them, and it becomes just another piece. Like, there isn't a CEO who doesn't think about, well, the supply chain, accounts payable, accounts receivable. There shouldn't be a CEO who doesn't think about, well, what's the risk of me doing X? What do I have to do over here? I need to think about it the same way that I think about getting my inventory in, paying my bills on time. And people know, the hackers know how to exploit that piece. So sometimes it's just the human element to stop and think, would my boss really ask me to buy all these cards, from Amazon and send them out to everybody? No, but that, people do it.
Well, you'll never get an email from me asking for $250,000, but I might put an SOS out for coffee. And so if you ever get that, that's legit, I promise. The audience is full of leaders from a number of sectors and industries. So, I'd love to get the panel's thoughts on some best practices they can bring back to their organizations on cyber and the topics that we've covered today.
So I would, as much as I hate to admit it, and Karen and I talked about this not too long ago, the federal government pressed to us, particularly in DOD, to consistently take this 100-question test that we had to take for cybersecurity. Actually works. And it goes to that human piece, and we've got to teach people just basic skills to pay attention to. Last week, I got an email on my WVU account that because of every year having to go online and complete that DOD requirement that I bitched and complained about, I knew was a phishing attack. It's the simple things of just incorporating that in curriculum. And one of the things the state just recently did is there was a passage of a piece of legislation that's going to require education in K through 12 to help make sure that our young people understand potential sexual predator threats and other threats online. So I think educating people at the basic level is one of the most important practices that we can do.
Other thoughts on best practices?
Well, I mean, if you're involved in cybersecurity, you know that even if you're a small business or a large business, it starts with awareness. Having a good cybersecurity awareness plan is your bedrock foundation. And then building upon that. You don't need 100 employees to have good awareness. If you have an administrative assistant that gets an email with an attachment on it and that says, wait a minute, Brad Smith's not trying to sell me a piano that's at his house, which I had that a couple of weeks ago. Oh, no. No, we had an email going around at the university. It was like, my goodness, he's really trying to sell this piano. And I was like, wait a minute. He would message us, or somehow there would be another form of communication there. So you forward that onto your security operations team to just stop and say, whoa, wait a minute. This doesn't look right. It doesn't have all the elements that we normally see out of this person or this department or this company, and then forward that on to security operations. You look at groups like CLOP, they're a group, a hacking group, which means that there's humans behind that. They have playbooks that they use to run scripts, and we can get very deep into the technology, but they start with the human factor. That's how they get into networks. So if a person clicks on a PDF, I can tell you that right now, I have certain playbooks on our national team. We run them, and we're into your system as soon as you click that PDF. So you can stop a full-fledged ransomware attack by that awareness to say, whoa, wait a minute, I'm going to send that to my SOC. My security operations team's going to look at that. Whoa, that's malicious. I'm stopping that. Not only am I going to do that, but I'm going to stop that email from going to other people. And if you kind of keep that awareness where people are investing in your cybersecurity, as they're a part of the organization, they're stopping the cyber attack, and you kind of convey that to them. Hey, you're the person that stopped that cyber attack that potentially could have hit us, that ransomware. Then they start to invest even more in your cybersecurity plans. And I think those are the companies that you rarely, if not ever, see cybersecurity attacks happening at, because they've educated their users so well.
Okay, so I'm going to do a shameless plug at this point. So the Cyber Readiness Institute, what we do, so everything that you guys are talking about, we have this all available, and it's free. Okay, so the training is online for free. And if you go to the Cyber Readiness Institute, you can actually create your own playbook. And it goes through, and by the time you finish the playbook, you will have a business continuity plan, and you will have an incident response plan. And you won't even know that you actually created the incident response plan, because the whole idea behind the Cyber Readiness Institute is not about the technology, it's about the human factor. So we've taken all the technology terms out of this, and you work through it. And what is there is then a series of videos that you can have for free. And if you notice, I'm going to say free a lot here, is because our member companies are committed to the ecosystem. So I have Microsoft, I have Apple, T-Mobile just joined, we have Principal Financial, the Center for Global Excellence, we also have ExxonMobil and GM, who chair our Small Business Advisory Council, and they're committed to the ecosystem because they know that their supply chain and their providers are small and medium businesses. And it's important to them. And you saw it earlier about, like, how will I know? How do I know? What's the viability of people? How are you doing this? If you do this program, the only thing you have to do is a commitment of your time, which is also, as a small business, a major resource. But it'll work you through there. And if I didn't say it again, it's free. So this is a best practice for you to be able to do it. But then you'll have it. And the one thing is, you don't want to test how aware they are in the middle of a crisis. You don't want to test your incident response plan when you're in the middle of a ransomware. The worst thing that can happen is when the computer lights up and it starts blinking and says, call this 1-800 number. My sister had that. She goes, should I call? I was like, oh my God, don't call. And so at least she called me first. And so, you don't want, that's not the time to figure out, who do I call? How do I handle this? How do I call everybody upstream, downstream? How do I handle the communications out in the ecosystem? All of that is out there, and it's easy to work through because you have to have it all in one place so that your team knows how to respond.
And Karen, I might have missed this. Did you say, is that free? Are those services
it's free? I'm telling you, it's free, so go out there and use it.
We heard a lot today about West Virginia going first in this space, from our WVU and Marshall's girls basketball teams, and their performance at the tournament, our legislation in this space, the work that we're doing in digital identity, the work that's going on in healthcare. General Hoyer, can you talk a little bit about, where the state is leading and cybersecurity assets and innovative initiatives that are happening here?
Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, this Cyber Center of Excellence that's part of U.S. Cyber Command, that's got WVU and Marshall, Civil Military Innovation Institute, and for the first time that I've ever seen in a 40-year military career, WVU and Marshall were actually written into the U.S. Cyber Command command plan as an asset. So you've got those things. I look around the room and I see Scott Rotruck and the work that's being done with the folks that he works with related to UAVs and next generation pieces of that. And I saw Randy and Brandon from Trilogy and folks from Leidos and NextGen. And you think about what's going on down at the High Tech Foundation and Jim and the work that's going on down there. I think this is still true, but at the Katherine Johnson facility down there, any piece of software that goes into space tied to NASA gets touched and tested in West Virginia. So I think what we've got to do is build off of what we're doing and help those companies that we have here that are doing great things and have made a commitment to West Virginia. And we can continue to grow this thing and it will explode. And we will, as I like to tell the folks in the Guard, they said, "What's our number one mission, sir?" And I said, to make West Virginia the center of the universe for national security. And that's what we ought to be thinking about.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Okay, last question, and I'd like to get everyone's perspective on this. So if we're going to build a robust cybersecurity ecosystem, we're going to have to intersect and bring together private industry, government, education, the defense sector. So how do we do this effectively and efficiently? Any thoughts on that?
So I'll start. I think events just like this, and Gail Manchin said it earlier too, West Virginians are out everywhere. There is not a place where we go that you don't see the flying WV. I see it all the time. I wear it proudly. Everyone wears it proudly. And I think that is the key to our success, an event like this. But then taking it forward in every aspect of your life. I've been given opportunities in my lifetime that I just could never imagine. And I believe it's because of my education here. I know I've shared that with everybody. I believe it's the core values that I take from West Virginia going forward, and I believe I live it in my life. And so when we do that, it's easy to then do the partnerships that have to happen because we're doing the right thing. And when we're doing the right thing and we have those West Virginia values going forward, people want to work with us, which makes it really very successful. So I don't think it's a stretch for us to be the epicenter for national security here in West Virginia.
And I think, Karen hits a key point when you're talking. I hate to always refer to military piece, but that's what I lived most of my life. But in a counterinsurgency, the most important thing you do is activate the network you build. And between what we've got in alumni across our institutions and people who've left West Virginia and gone on to great things, it's time to activate the network and bring these people into partnership together with us and create that environment to be the center of the universe.
Yeah. Remember those brilliant kids I was talking about earlier? They become brilliant college students. They go to WVU, they go to Marshall. They become quality-producing college students with these partnerships that General Hoyer was talking about. It's phenomenal that we're working with U.S. Cybercom, these companies. I was talking to individuals from Trilogy, and all of these people are starting to come together. We're starting to come together as institutions and training these college students to solve those issues. Those brilliant college students become brilliant adults, and they stay here, and they provide back to the state. Why couldn't we be the center of the universe? Why couldn't we be? When we have those people who are staying here that are brilliant, that are contributing and solving those problems. I think it's beyond our wildest dreams of where we'll be in 20 years with that.
Well, I love that. I think that's a perfect thing to end on, that West Virginia will be the center of the universe on many fronts. I want to thank our panel for their time, expertise, and everything that they do on this front.